Chapter 91 Tang San becomes more confident. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tang San hesitated for a moment, and said carefully. I have two ways to deal with the poison in your body. One is to use some herbs that can suppress the poison to dissolve it directly, but this will also make your poison power disappear. Doupo flatly refused. Don't mention this method, tell me another one. Such an answer did not surprise Tang San, and he continued to say another plan. The reason why you are poisoned is because you have a beast martial spirit instead of a weapon martial spirit. Although soul power can suppress the poison to a certain extent, they have also become a part of your body. If you want to keep the poison in your body, you must find a parasite to store the poison. Doupo looked at Tang San with a strange expression, and before he finished speaking, he coldly spit out two words, soul bone. Tang San's expression froze, and he looked at Doupo with a bit of surprise. Do you think I can't think of such a simple method? I knew it a long time ago and I'm trying it. Doupo's tone was a bit arrogant. Tang San calmed down, as if he had figured something out, and smiled. Did you really think of this yourself? If I'm not mistaken, this is what the man called Amon told you. So you won't worry about your granddaughter. You are sure you can cure the poison in her body. She just lacks a soul bone. But you can't cure your own poison, because the difficulty is not at the same level. Besides, he just said this idea, and didn't tell you how to do it specifically. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here listening to me nagging, and you would have killed me long ago. Doupo was silent and didn't refute. After getting confirmation, Tang San felt a flash of resentment towards Amon. If it weren't for him, he could easily control Doupo and wouldn't have to endure so much torture. He remembered this name in his heart. After understanding the key, Tang San finally regained his confidence. You have to know that ideas are always just ideas. Whether they can be realized is still an unknown. I believe you have tried many methods, but you still can't solve the problem. Of course, your poison is not only intense, but also very stubborn. They have long been integrated with your body and become an inseparable part of it. You may not find a solution even if you try for a long time. If you force it with soul power, it will only cause a stronger backlash. I'm not sure yet. I have about 20% to 30% chance of solving your problem. The specific situation has to wait for me to study it. If there is a suitable medicine, the probability can be increased to 30% to 40%. Only 30%? Doupo frowned. 30% is not low. I'm afraid that in the whole continent, I am the only one who has 30% chance of curing you. Tang San believed in the Tang sect's poisoning methods and said proudly. Okay. But I have to test your poison attainments first. Doupo smiled sinisterly. It's a mule or a horse, he has to slip away to know, otherwise he dare not let Tang San treat him. After all, if Tang San is just bragging, it may aggravate his symptoms. Afterwards, Doupo poisoned Tang San and took him to the Yin-Yang Eye of Ice and Fire, telling him that he could take the herbs in the canyon at will and use them as detoxification materials. After seeing the Yin-Yang Eye of Ice and Fire and the surrounding herbs, Tang San was like a mouse in a rice jar. Even being tortured and the resentment of being poisoned and humiliated faded a lot, and only joy and excitement remained in his heart. Outside the canyon, the poisoned Amon and 3 Amons whose personalities were judged by the Amons as inferior gathered together around a fire. On the fire was an iron pot, which stewed mushrooms, wild vegetables, and a pheasant. Under the pot, there were several skewers stuck in the ground, close to the fire, and the rabbit meat on the skewers was sizzling and looked very delicious. The scream just now should be that Tang San was caught by Doupo. The poisoned Amon said. One Amon stroked his monocle and asked, what if Doupo has already cured his own poison and doesn't need Tang San? That there was a trace of worry on his face, as if he was really worried about Tang San's safety. The poisoned Amon chuckled and said, hee. Then we can only say that it's bad luck, whether it's for us or Tang San. Another Amon held a bunch of roasted mushrooms in his hand. This is the first butterfly effect we caused that affects the protagonist. I hope the plot can get back on track. The poisoned Amon stared at the direction of the valley. It's not a big problem. As long as Doupo needs Tang San to detoxify, they will be attracted by each other's knowledge in the discussion and exchange of the use of poison, which will lead to the result of the original work. TSK, I actually hope that Doupo will just kill Tang San like this. It's better to kill the little punk as soon as possible. Compared with him, I would rather focus on Qian Renxue. Well, to steal her heart. The last Amon bit a wild fruit in his mouth and stirred the pot with a soup spoon made of soul power. The personalities of almonds are different. Some are noble, some are despicable, some are lazy, and some are diligent. Some almonds have inherited more of a certain aspect of human nature, and will show more desires and be more easily affected by emotions. Of course, on the whole, this will not affect Amon's actions, because the sum of the wills of all almonds will be equal to the original, undivided will of Amon. In addition, no matter which Amon, the most basic thinking logic will not change. I don't care what you think, but please cooperate with me during this period. If there is any stealing heart plan, I will vote for you when selecting the executor. The poisoned Amon promised. Thank you very much. This is an exchange of interests between Amon and Amon. Tiendo Royal Academy, in the office of the Education Committee, a medium-sized, slightly thin man who looks 40 or 50 years old, a plump beautiful woman, and a strong man with a hooked nose, wide cheekbones, and a cunning look are waiting anxiously. These three people are Yu Xiaojiang, Lu Erlong, and Flanders, who discovered Tang San's disappearance and judged that it was related to Doupo, and came to inquire about Doupo's whereabouts. Meng Xinji walked into the office and saw their anxious expressions. He asked with a little confusion, what happened? That Yu Xiaojiang explained the whole story to him. Meng Xinji frowned and told them all the information he knew about Doupo, but politely refused their request for help. Yu Xiaojiang and the other two did not force them, because they also knew that without any relatives or friends, no one would go to face a titled Douluo for a stranger who had only met them a few times. They left Tiendo Royal Academy without delay and rushed to Sunset Forest as fast as possible. Chapter 92: The Golden Triangle. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Tang San, just like in the original novel, picked up the fiery apricot and eight-angled mysterious ice grass and entered the intersection of the Yin Spring and Yang Spring of the Yin-Yang Eye of Ice and Fire to refine them. In a corner that he didn't notice, the acacia heartbroken red with a circle of deep white rings on its petals turned slightly and stared at him through the mist. As night fell, the moon in the sky was particularly round. The bright moonlight made the earth not appear dark. A vigorous whistle broke the silence of the night, the whistle rolling like thunder, startling the soul beasts in the forest. This was Doupo expressing his dissatisfaction after experiencing pain. Not long after, three whistles sounded at the same time, two strong and one weak, either low or passionate, all filled with strong hostility. Quickly approaching the place where the first whistle sounded, sitting on a branch, Amon, who was dozing with his back against the tree trunk, opened his eyes. He raised his right hand and squeezed his monocle, whispering to himself, "Is it coming?" He jumped up and hopped between the branches to get closer to the place where the battle was about to break out. After the Golden Iron Triangle failed to negotiate with Doupo, a battle broke out between the two sides. The sun and the moon shine, and the gold turns. Flanders shouted. Three golden rays of light shot up from Flanders, Yu Xiaojiang, and Lu Erlong, and spread out from their feet at the same time. Amid the golden light, a triangle was formed with the three people as the vertices, and complex patterns were generated spontaneously. The chubby Luo Sanpao appeared out of thin air and landed in a circle in the center of the triangle. The soul rings of the three people emerged at the same time and gathered on Luo Sanpao. After absorbing the soul ring, Luo Sanpao's body grew at a very fast speed. Diamond-shaped scales grew on his chubby body, and two twisted horns grew from the top of his head. In a few breaths, it changed from a naive pig to a 20-meter-long golden dragon. The huge dragon wings stretched out, and the terrifying pressure overflowed. The heavy breath made Doupo frown. Emerald light burst out from Doupo's body, the first 7 soul rings lit up, and his tall and thin body quickly expanded into a huge green-scaled snake. A dragon and a snake confronted each other in the air, and the terrifying pressure made the soul beasts in the forest fall into anxiety. Amon hid in the dark, covered himself with a soul barrier. And at the same time activated the first soul ring to steal his own soul performance. His breath was covered by soul power, and the soul power fluctuations were stolen by soul skills. Unless you see him directly, you can't detect him by soul power perception alone. This is also the reason why he can move outside the valley for so long without being discovered by Doupo. The title Douluo. Luo Sanpao let out a loud dragon roar, and a golden lightning spurted out of his mouth. The jade phosphorus snake king transformed by Doupo did not dodge or evade, and spit out a green mist. The two behemoths fought in the air. After fighting for a while, the enraged Doupo used his 8th soul skill, Time Freeze. Even though he could fight the title Douluo briefly after using the martial soul fusion skill, the strength of the golden iron triangle was still weaker, and the battle ended with Doupo's victory. Just as Doupo was about to kill the 3 people, Tang San arrived, stopped Doupo, winked at him, and talked to the 3 people. Have you cured the poison? Doupo looked at Tang San in surprise. That's right, you own a treasure land without knowing it. There are many medicinal herbs with miraculous effects there. I am now 50% sure that I can help you detoxify. 50%. Doupo's face showed a touch of emotion. Okay, I'll let the 3 of them go, and you quickly detoxify me. Tang San, who thought he had the initiative, did not give in and put forward his own conditions. I need you to agree to 3 conditions before I am willing to detoxify you. Doupo pondered for a moment and felt that blindly threatening was not a good choice, so he chose to give in. What conditions do you say? First, after the detoxification, the herbs here are at my disposal. Impossible. Do you think I don't know how precious the herbs here are? Amon is willing to exchange a piece of 10,000-year soul bone for one. Doupo flatly refused. Amon, it's Amon again. Tang San made a note in his heart with hatred, and felt a strong hostility towards this person who he had never met but had repeatedly frustrated him. 10,000 years soul bone. So your granddaughter's poison has been cured? Tang San asked calmly. That's not the case. Amon said he could win the college competition and then he would give me a soul bone. Doupo said honestly. Heh. Tang San sneered. I thought it was some idiot who was willing to exchange a herb for something as precious as a 10,000 years soul bone. Although in Tang San's mind, the preciousness of the fairy grass is higher than the 10,000 years soul bone, but this does not prevent him from devaluing the value of the fairy grass at this moment to achieve his own goal. It turns out that you are stupid, and you were taken advantage of. Tang San used a small verbal offense to test Doupo's tolerance for him. Do you think I'm that stupid? I poisoned him. If he fails to fulfill the agreement, he will die of the poison in 2 years. Of course, if he doesn't win the championship, I won't kill him. I just let him help me study poisons. Doupo retorted. Did you have murderous intentions towards him at that time? Tang San asked suddenly. Doupo did not deny it. Tang San shook his head. You were fooled by him. If I'm not mistaken, he should be sure to cure your poison and would propose such a deal. First, he gets a herb for free, and second, he lets you let him go with peace of mind. After all, your poison attainments are just like that. After solving the poison Doupo gave him, taking fiery apricot delicate and 8-angled mysterious ice grass, and knowing Doupo's urgent needs, Tang San also became a little tougher and belittled Doupo's level of poison again. In fact, Tang San was not sure what kind of mentality Amon had in proposing such a deal to Doupo, but he was happy to throw some dirty water to make Doupo suspicious and bring trouble to the other party. Doupo was a little angry, both because of Tang San's belittlement of his poison attainments and because such a possibility did exist. Thinking back carefully, Amon was too calm at the time, and he seemed to have been led by the other party. Stop talking nonsense, change the conditions quickly, don't mention anything too extreme. Doupo said coldly. Seeing his tone cool down, Tang San also restrained himself a little and was no longer so presumptuous. Then let me choose 10 plants. No, too many, at most 5 plants. After seeing that Amon and Tang San both showed their desire for herbs, Doupo realized that the value of these herbs seemed to be much higher than he had initially estimated, and silently raised their importance in his mind. Too few, at least 9 plants, otherwise I won't have enough to share when I take it back. Tang San bargained. 7 plants. Doupo said firmly. Tang San thought for a moment, nodded and agreed, okay, 7 plants. Chapter 93 Hanhai City. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The second condition is that no matter what time in the future, you can't harm anyone related to our Shrek Academy. Tang San said with burning eyes. Doupo sneered, what are you dreaming about? Whenever I'm attacked, I won't fight back. What if my enemies join in? Do you think I will agree to such a condition that puts such a big shackles on myself? You is what you do for me so valuable. Tang San's expression changed, and he whispered, this is your life. Doupo's green eyes were filled with coldness. It's also your life, and the lives of the 3 of them. Do you want me to choose one now and torture him to death bit by bit with poison? You dare. What am I afraid of? Doupo said disdainfully, stop proposing some fanciful things. In terms of propriety, you are much worse than Amon. Doupo was a little annoyed by Tang San's greed, and just because he knew the detoxification method, he opened his mouth again and made unrealistic demands. Compared to this, the deal with Amon seemed much more comfortable. Amon again. The more Tang San heard this name, the more disgusted he became. He took a deep breath and said coldly, the second condition is to let my teachers leave. In addition, I am not allowed to take the initiative to take action against the current Shrek 7 devils. Shrek 7 monsters. Doupo was stunned. That's Dai Mubai, Oscar, Mi, Ma Hongjun, Xiao Wu, Ning Rongrong, and Zhu Zhuqing. Tang San explained. Doupo pondered for a moment and agreed. Yes, but you are excluded, otherwise I won't be able to do anything to you. If you play some tricks while detoxifying, I will definitely have to teach you a lesson. Tang San's expression was stagnant. There was no need to say so directly that he wanted to attack me. The stiffness on his face only lasted for a moment before he returned to normal, nodded and said, okay. What is the third condition? Doupo asked proactively. Not sure yet, I'll tell you after I think about it. Tang San did not put forward all the conditions rashly, intending to decide based on the situation. Then I also have the right to refuse. I can't pay too much for your condition. Doupo said calmly. Tang San frowned slightly and replied, okay. Afterwards, Tang San went back and explained to Yu Xiaojiang and the others who were waiting at the spot that Doupo had no ill intentions towards him, but just wanted to keep him for a while to discuss and communicate with each other on the topic of using poison. Yu Xiaojiang and others were doubtful. Of course he knew Doupo's attainments in the art of poison. If Tang San could learn from him, he would naturally benefit a lot. But Doupo had always been moody, and he was a little worried about Tang San's safety. Seeing their worries, Doupo smiled coldly. You can come to visit him at any time, but not too often. I don't like to be disturbed. Hearing this, Yu Xiao just felt relieved and bowed to Doupo. Then I will ask Senior to take care of the mistress. If this kid is rude in any way, I hope Senior will forgive me. On a leaf, a translucent worm with 12 rings and a star-like color twisted its body and got into the shadow of the branches and leaves. Not far away, after receiving the message from the Worm of Time, Amon, who was poisoned, chuckled. Tang San rescued Yu Xiaojiang and the others. It looks very different from the original work. He glanced at the other Amon beside him and said, go and tell the main body the news. Even if Tang San is alive or dead, it won't change our short-term plan. But the main body likes the feeling of being in control of the overall situation. Knowing that the butterfly effect here does not have too much impact can make him feel at ease. Hanhai City is the largest city on the western frontier of the Tiando Empire and the largest seaside city and port city on the Douluo continent. The huge city was built along the sea. The main body of the city was built on a mountain by the sea, encompassing the entire mountain and radiating to the coast. A caravan from the Northland came to this magnificent city along with the flow of people. The guards guarding the city came for a routine inspection. They saw some furs and mountain products that they had never seen before in the truck, and they couldn't help but ask. "Is this your first time in Hanhai city? Where did these things come from?" The leader of the caravan, Amon, who had a personality close to the original Amon, touched the bottom edge of his monocle and answered with a chuckle. "We are from the north. It is said that shipping things from the interior can be dozens of times more expensive than shipping them here. You can also get a lot of profit by shipping things here back, so I took the risk and gave it a try." As he spoke, he stuffed a few gintama coins into the guard's hand without leaving a trace. A satisfied smile appeared on the guard's face. "I wish you a prosperous business." He waved his hand to let him go. After entering the city, the leader Amon weighed the newly acquired money bag with a slightly evil smile on his face. There are some things that the main body cannot do. He needs a stable environment, but the clone is different. "Alright, everyone, Amon, please disperse. After you find the clues, use spiritual communication to inform others." The Amons were either alone, in pairs, or scattered in groups, looking for clues about the Mermaid clan in this huge vast sea city. At the city gate, the soldier who accepted Amon's bribe wanted to put the gintama coins into his money bag, but he searched around and couldn't find his money bag. "What the hell, what's going on? I clearly remembered to bring it with me." Leader Amon looked at the pedestrians coming and going on the street. There was a big racial difference between the residents of Hanhai City and the people of Northland. Most people here are short and dark-skinned. Even Amon, who is only of medium height in the north, feels like a crane standing out from the crowd here. He stared at the tallest building on the top of the mountain in the distance. There is the main hall of the Wuhuan Hall. Although Hanhai City is not the capital of Fasno Province, due to its important geographical location, it is an outpost to guard against the forces of Poseidon Island. Therefore, the Wuhuan Hall here is also at the main hall level, and the hall master is the sole saint-level Cardinal Pierce. Amon did not go directly to the Wuhuan Hall, but entered a clothing store and completely changed his dress style. He went to a barber shop, permed his hair, and dyed it golden, and then walked slowly towards the Wuhuan Hall. Walter once greeted the Wuhuan Hall here and asked them to assist Amon's actions. However, once he contacted them, some information from his side would definitely be sent to Walter. Amon didn't want him to know that he could split into clones, and the clones could act independently hundreds of kilometers away, so he had to pretend to be a completely different person, accept Amon's commission, and work for him. Arriving at the Spirit Hall, Amon showed the token given to him by Walter, and the guard at the door respectfully let him in. One of them hurriedly ran into the hall to make a report. Walking into the hall, a man in a red robe who looked to be in his 50s or 60s came over. He looked at Amon for a moment and said, "I am Pierce, the master of this main hall. What is your name?" Amon showed a warm smile on his face and said softly, "Just call me Adam." Chapter 94. Half a year. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. After a period of fermentation, the news of the assassination of Marquis Fikris finally spread, and it was not limited to the upper class. Rummel took care of his teammates' emotions and did not do anything to make people angry in front of Alia. Binglan, Lain, and Yenjin all expressed sympathy for Alia's experience and went to her home to visit. Vidal and Brady came to Alia's villa together. While waiting at the door, they smiled at each other. As former opponents, they knew each other quite well. "Did you notice it?" Brady asked. "Well, for us, this is a good opportunity, isn't it?" Vidal smiled. Another carriage stopped by the side, and Franco got off the carriage. "Why are you here?" Vidal was a little puzzled. In his impression, Franco, apart from having some talent as a soul master, has never been good at politics. "My dad asked me to come, although I don't know what I'm here for." Franco took the red wine from the servant. This was a small gift for the host when visiting. The door opened, and Alia was wearing a silver white dress with gems. There was no sadness on her bright face. She said in a silver bell-like voice, "You are here, please come in." The three handed their gifts to Alia's servants and followed her into the reception room. "You don't look sad at all." Vidal smiled and picked up a glass of wine, nodding to the maid serving beside him. What's there to be sad about? At least, I don't have to worry about someone sending me to a marriage in the short term. Alia had a faint smile on her face. Since we are all teammates, we should naturally help each other. I will stand firmly on Vidal's side, and likewise, on your side. Brady said, among the three, his right to inherit the title is the most stable. He is the eldest son in the family, has good talent, and his mother's family is also powerful. Vidal smiled and thanked him. The current situation was much better than he had expected at the beginning. 2 years ago, his father had already planned to replace the heir, but it had been pending. Recently, he had no intention of doing so. Every time he returned home, he felt indescribably happy when he saw the gloomy faces of his half-brothers. He said to Alia, I will also be your staunch ally. Franco, who was enjoying the cakes brought by the maid, said vaguely, me too. Alia picked up the wine glass, I will remember this favor. Cheers to our friendship. The 4 cups collided with each other, making a crisp sound. Half a year passed quickly. While Tang San was detoxifying Doupo, they exchanged their views on the way of poison. The two met too late, and they were bosom friends, and formed a friendship of both teacher and friend. Tang San took Wangchuan Kalushiri. This was not included in the 7 herbs promised by Doupo. Because he took it on the grounds that he could help Doupo draw poison more carefully after increasing his mental power, it was counted as one of the treatment consumables. After Tang San selected the herbs according to the characteristics of the Shrek people, he also took away the fragrant Chilua fairy product as one of the treatment tools. The reason he gave was, the doctor took his own medical tools. In this regard, the honest man Doupo also turned a blind eye, because he still felt a little sorry for forcibly capturing Tang San to the valley at that time. When leaving the valley, Tang San took a deep look at the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire, as well as the fairy grass around him. With a little greed in his eyes, the treasures of heaven and earth belong to those with virtue. Since Doupo doesn't know how to use them, it's just a waste of natural resources. If there is a chance, I must get them. He thought to himself. In Beatty City, there have been significant changes in the past 6 months. Mischief was officially appointed as the Lord of Beatty City by Emperor Shuiyi. A Soul Saint-level worshipper stayed behind to protect his safety. Although he did not participate in the disputes between the nobles, he launched a drastic reform, removed many spies planted by the nobles in the city lord's forces, promoted and appointed talented civilians, and firmly grasped the power of the Northland city in his own hands. In this regard, Walter let it go and did nothing for the new city lord. Every day, he either drank tea, basked in the sun, or instructed Yan Jin. Of course, he was not good at theoretical things, and all his teachings were simple and rough practical combat. This just suited Yan Jin's taste. Even if she was beaten to pieces every time, she never tired of it. Often, she would come to the door to be beaten again before she had recovered from her injuries for a few days. Yan Jin's efforts were not without rewards. She broke through to level 50. With the help of Walter, she hunted a 20,000-year-old Liuhua toad and reached level 52 directly. Just 2 days ago, she was promoted to level 53. Alia, Vidal, Brady, and Franco walked very close to each other, and they seemed to form a small group. Good-tempered Lei and annoying Rummel get along surprisingly well. Rummel always comes up with all kinds of weird stories to brag in the tavern, and Lei listens with great interest every time. As the team's instructor, Sun Buiyuan was so worried that his hair fell out. Although the team members are all very good, and the quality is much higher than that of previous participating teams, the coordination is simply unbearable. He specially contacted the Northland City Great Fighting Spirit Arena, hoping to find a few powerful teams for actual combat training, but none of the official members of the Northland team took him as their teacher seriously. They tried several times but failed to organize the team, and each time less than half of the members showed up. Only Yang Feipeng and Gong Qingyun, the 2 alternates, listened to his command. Amon's original body had not practiced for a while. He was already level 50. Although the accumulated soul power would be revealed after obtaining the soul ring if he continued to practice, he did not do so, because the practice efficiency at this time was not high, far less than the practice speed after obtaining the soul ring. He was more willing to enjoy this rare free time. although he usually interacted with the clone, he could also feel the pleasure of enjoyment from the clone's memory and get spiritual satisfaction, but it was not the original body that was resting after all. Even if Amon had always set the goal of strengthening his strength and improving his life level, and enjoyed the feeling of his soul power improving bit by bit, he would occasionally feel tired. On a sunny afternoon, Amon lay on the red roof without any image, there were no clouds in the sky, and the wind blew slowly, bringing bursts of coolness. He looked at the blue sky, emptied his mind, and relaxed his mind. A long-awaited message came from a time worm clone who rushed to Beatty City. The Amons of Hanhai City have locked onto the target of the fifth soul ring. Amon closed his eyes, rested for a while, suddenly opened his eyes, and sat up with his hands on the roof. He pinched the upper and lower edges of his monocle with his right thumb and index finger, and smiled. Finally here. I've been waiting for a long time. Sorry, it's a bit late. Chapter 95 Hunting Plan. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. At the gate of Hanhai City, an old man and a young man stopped at the same time. The young man wore a black classical robe, a pointed soft hat on his head, and a monocle on his right eye. The old man wore a white robe embellished with gold thread, and white boots on his feet, which were soft and shiny. Looking at the majestic city in front of him, Walter's face showed a look of reminiscence. My wife said before that she had been stationed here. However, I have never heard her mention any mermaid clan. I am afraid that even here, the race you mentioned is something that is rarely known. It's indeed rare, otherwise it wouldn't have taken half a year for the news to arrive. Amon pinched his eyes, his expression slightly dull. He is making spiritual connections with the clones in Hanhai City to understand what has happened here in the past 6 months. After accepting the message from the clone, he glanced at the guard at the city gate with interest. In the past 6 months, this unlucky guard had lost his wallet 6 times. The two rested for a day in Wuhuan Hall. Early the next morning, a man with dyed blonde hair, wearing a white robe, and a smile on his face, giving people an inexplicable sense of intimacy, came to the door of Wuhuan Hall. He exuded a sweet fragrance and had light makeup on his face. The guards at the door greeted him with a smile. Mr. Adam, why are you here? Adam said gently, the person I was waiting for has arrived. Amon and Walter walked out of the spirit hall. Walter looked at Adam with a look of confusion on his face. He always felt that the blonde man in front of him gave him a sense of familiarity. He did not recognize that Adam and Amon actually looked exactly the same. After all, a person could almost become another person by putting on makeup, changing his hairstyle, and changing his clothing. Mr. Walter, this is my good friend, Adam, who found the target this time. Adam, this is Mr. Walter. Amon introduced both parties. Hello, Mr. Walter. Adam saluted. Walter nodded slightly, his eyes wandering between Adam and Amon, as if he wanted to see through the connection between the two. Under the leadership of Adam, the two came to the port and boarded a medium-sized fishing boat on a pier. On the fishing boat, there were dozens of sailors, most of whom were ordinary people, with 2 or 3 Amon clones among them. The reason why they are not all clones is because they are worried that Walter will become suspicious. 1 or 2 people with similar faces could be considered a coincidence, but if dozens of people on the entire ship had the same face shape, it would be difficult not to find a problem. The sail was lowered and the fishing boat, half loaded with cargo, slowly sailed away from the shore. Adam looked at Walter and asked, Mr. Walter, how much strength can you exert on the sea? Although according to my plan, there is a high probability that we will not fight at sea, but we may need to escape at sea. No need to worry, the combat terrain does not restrict me much. Walter replied. The 3 of them came to the captain's cabin. Adam took out a chart and began to explain his hunting plan. It took me half a year to gain the trust of the Mermaid clan and gain the qualification to trade with them every other month. I will bring unique goods from the shore and go to the settlement of the Mermaid clan to exchange for the things they collect from the sea. This is a huge profit. If there were no other substitutes for Amon, I wouldn't want to let it go. Adam intentionally or unintentionally revealed to Walter the information that he and Amon had a good relationship. After a pause, he continued. Not all mermaids meet the requirements. First, they must have a higher proportion of sea soul beast blood. Second, they must be of the right age. And third, they must have sufficient talent and the ability to read minds. Wait a minute, if the other party has the ability to read minds, wouldn't he be able to detect our plan when he sees you? Walter couldn't help but interrupt when he heard this. Well, she can read other people's voices, but she can only read instantaneous thoughts, and can't check past memories. As long as she restrains her thoughts and concentrates all her thoughts on what she is doing at the moment, there is no need to worry about this. Adam explained, the mermaid's mind-reading ability is similar to that of Honesty Hall in Mystery. As long as you restrain your thoughts, you can deal with it. This is not a problem for Adam. Moreover, the ability to read minds is not maintained all the time. There will be fluctuations in mental power before activation. This means that Adam does not have to keep his mind focused all the time, and the difficulty is reduced a lot. Adam continued, currently, there is only one person who meets the conditions, the second daughter of the mermaid clan leader, Hai-yun. The specific action process is as follows. Adam pointed to the chart and drew a circle in the sea area. This is the settlement of the mermaid clan. It is a small island, but it is not marked on the map. Then, he moved the charcoal and drew another circle on another island closer to the mainland. I will put Amon and Mr. Walter down here. This is the selected hunting point. After that, I will go to Mermaid Island and steal the treasures they have enshrined for generations. If nothing else happens, Hai-yun will come to hunt me down. I will lure Hai-yun to the island where you are ambushing me. You need to kill her as soon as possible and then leave immediately. She probably has the strength to join Contra for the first time. If the arrangements are made in advance, I think it won't be difficult for you, Mr. Walter, to kill her, right? What needs to be noted is that we must move quickly, otherwise we will most likely be chased by Tidal Douluo. Tidal Douluo? Walter's face changed slightly, and he asked with a bit of solemnity, what's going on? But even though his combat power is second to none among Contras and he can even fight against some less powerful Tidal Douluo, he does not want to be an enemy of a titled sea spirit master on the sea. Adam said with some seriousness. Hai-yun's sister, Sea Witch, is one of the 7 sacred pillars guarding Poseidon Island. The 6th pillar is Sea Lady Douluo, but she usually guards the Poseidon pillar on Poseidon Island and won't leave easily. But if something big happens to the mermaid clan, she will probably leave the sacred pillar and go to the rescue. Mr. Walter, don't worry. I also have people in the sea near the sea god's pillar. If the Sea Witch leaves the sea god island, I will get the news as soon as possible. Walter thought for 2 seconds and asked. If you can lure her into my trap, then I have a high degree of confidence in killing her. But how can you be sure that she will definitely come to hunt you down? It must be her who comes to hunt you down. Adam said with a smile, the mermaid family are all devout believers of Poseidon. The treasure they have enshrined for generations is said to be a gem on the crown of the former Poseidon. It was given to their ancestors by the Poseidon and has been passed down to this day. Although it has no special power, it is the spiritual sustenance of the mermaid clan. They will not give up recovering the gems. Hai-yun is the strongest among the mermaid clan, and she is the only one who can catch up with my sea-breaking shuttle. The sea-breaking shuttle is a soul guidance device that Adam purchased specifically for this operation. It can only be ridden by one person. The advantage is that it is incredibly fast. Walter looked at Adam deeply. Isn't your plan a bit simple? Adam smiled without changing and replied. Sometimes, the more sophisticated the plan, the more likely it is that problems will arise, but some simple means can bring unexpected results. Chapter 96 Mermaid Village. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. In fact, Amon's plan is certainly not that simple, and there is another variable that needs to be excluded, that is the current patriarch of the mermaid clan, the grandfather of Hai-yun and the Sea Witch. He is the strongest person in the current mermaid settlement, a soul fighter close to the title level. But he usually does not leave the settlement. Amon plans to spread his clones to make trouble in the settlement while stealing the gems. In this way, between the patriarch and Hai-yun, one person will definitely stay to guard the settlement, and the other will be responsible for hunting down the thief who stole the gems. The one who stays in the settlement is most likely the patriarch who rarely leaves the settlement, and the task of hunting down will naturally fall on Hai-yun. However, there is No need to explain these to Walter, because Amon is not easy to explain where he got the manpower to cause damage in the settlement. You know, this is a mission with a 100% chance of death. If it is not for some big forces, they can't train enough Deadpools to do such things, so Amon simply concealed the existence of the Mermaid Patriarch. Anyway, the final result will not change. Amon sat at the bow and looked out at the sea. The sea breeze brought moist air mixed with a unique salty smell. The afternoon sun was warm and comfortable. He looked back at the sailors who were chatting and bragging on the deck. A wave of emotion appeared in his eyes, but it soon disappeared, leaving only a deep feeling. After 3 days of sailing, the outline of an island slowly emerged in the field of vision. Adam smiled and walked to Amon and Walter, saying softly, "You two, the island ahead is the one I mentioned for ambush. The location of this island is between the Mermaid settlement and the mainland, and it is convenient to retreat after the hunt is over." He handed a space ring to Amon. "Here is a Soul Guide speedboat with 2 seats. Use it to evacuate to the mainland immediately after killing Hanhai." Amon handed the ring to Walter. "Mr. Walter, please take me to retreat when the time comes." This was to give the retreat to Walter, showing his full trust in him. Walter took the ring, sensed the soul guide in the ring, frowned and asked, "If the sea witch really chases you, then you may not have time to absorb the soul ring." Generally, absorbing soul rings requires a stable environment, which cannot tolerate any interference, and absorbing soul rings of more than 10,000 years often takes a long time. Several hours is normal. Amon stroked his monocle and said with a smile, "This is not a problem for me. I don't need a too stable environment to absorb soul rings. I can absorb while moving, but I can't be attacked too strongly. Because the time worms in the body can guide energy, Amon doesn't need to concentrate too much when absorbing soul rings." Amon and Walter got off the boat on this uninhabited deserted island. Their space rings carried enough water and food to live on the island for more than a month. Walter had already prepared for a few days of wind and rain, but he saw 2 simple but exquisite wooden houses in the center of the island. The furniture in the house was neat, and the bed was even covered with soft velvet quilts. He asked with a strange look, "Did your friend prepare it?" Amon nodded. "Since I am the one who prepared the early arrangements, I naturally cannot neglect Mr. Walter in such a place." Walter nodded slightly, expressing his satisfaction with their thoughtfulness. Although he didn't mind sleeping in a tent for a few days, he would certainly accept a better choice. The sailboat continued to sail on the boundless sea, and Adam ordered, "Don't be frugal, take out the best food and the best wine on the ship." "Oh, long live the captain!" The sailors cheered. 3 days later, the sailboat arrived at its destination. A wooden house hanging on the sea is sparsely distributed near the coast. These wooden houses have only windows, no normal doors, and their doors are all opened at the bottom of the house, connected to the sea, and the mermaids enter and exit the house from the sea. Adam smiled warmly on his face and nodded to the mermaids who looked at the ship from time to time in the sea. On the island, by the river, near the inland, a domed stone building stands out among the simple wooden houses, highlighting its unique status. Not far from the stone building, there is a more exquisite stone hut, which is the residence of the mermaid clan leader. "Sister, the merchant ship is coming." A little mermaid boy jumped into the house. "Okay, I'll go over to maintain order." A girl wearing a blue half-dress, exposing her navel, and a huge fish tail below her waist nodded and said, "Her face, neck, arms, and waist are all covered with fine dark blue scales, her teeth are sharp and not like those of humans, and there are several cracks under her ears, which are traces of fish gills." Hanhai walked out of the house, jumped into the river in front of the house, and swam along the river to the coast. After a while, she came to the estuary of the river and saw a blonde man standing on the bow with a warm smile on his face. Because they were acquaintances, Hanhai only asked the guards to conduct a routine and not strict inspection of the ship. She said to Adam, "Still follow the old rules. First, complete the bulk goods trade between the village and you, and then allow your crew to set up stalls in the village square for 2 days with their own small items. After 2 days, you leave." Adam said gently, "I understand. Please trouble Miss Hanhai." Feeling the spiritual power that permeated around him, Adam gathered his mind and focused his attention on the upcoming trade, not thinking about unnecessary things. Hanhai's mind reading did not last too long. She retracted her scattered spiritual power, waved her hand, and the soul power surged. A stream of water pushed the boat along the river and moved towards the island. Following the river to a lake, the boat was docked on the shore. The sailors skillfully dropped the anchor and then threw down the ladder. Some people stayed on the boat, and some people climbed down the ladder and began to unload the goods. They hit 3 ground nails on the ground, straightened 3 ropes, tied one end to the side of the boat, and tied the other end to the ground nails. The packed goods were carried by the sailors, slid down the ropes from the boat one by one, and piled neatly aside. A team of mermaids came over and began to count and hand over the goods with Amon dressed as a sailor. Hanhai led the guards to maintain order at the scene, preventing the mermaids who were extremely curious about the merchant ships from approaching to avoid disrupting the trade. Adam's eyes inadvertently swept across the center of the lake, where there was a square pyramid with a statue of Poseidon on top. This was the altar where the mermaids worshipped Poseidon. Chapter 97 Action. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. At night, a bright moon hung obliquely in the sky. The brilliance of the moon covered the stars, so that few stars could be seen in the sky. The arrival of merchant ships is a lively event once a month for the mermaid village, which is poor in material resources and has few entertainment activities, not exactly hospitable, but the simple mermaids held a bonfire party, arming themselves with sailors from afar, singing and dancing in the square by the lake. The wind blows from the lake, carrying a somewhat moist atmosphere. Amon dressed as a clown rode a unicycle with a wine barrel on his head, spinning around the bonfire, attracting applause. Hanhai used one fin of her huge fish tail to perform the mermaid version of Golden Rooster Independence. Amid the cheers of the tribesmen, she smiled extremely happily, revealing 2 rows of white fangs. Adam, come and play too, don't always act like a blockhead. She waved to Adam, who was sitting in an inconspicuous position among the crowd. Adam said with a smile on his face, I won't, you just have fun. Hanhai and another mermaid girl danced a mermaid dance in the middle of the crowd. The girl's pretty face has a bright smile, and her graceful body glows with a faint luster under the light of the bonfire. She dances gracefully, and her eyes are flowing and shining with hope. After dancing, Hanhai walked to Adam and sat down next to him and said, Tell me about things in your human kingdom. I've wanted to go for a walk for a long time, but Grandpa won't let me, saying that we belong to the sea. Fish will die if they leave the water. Before Adam could answer, she said with some lack of interest. Forget it, let's not talk about it. The more I know, the more I want to see it. Curiosity will kill the beaver. She looked at the sparkling lake, feeling a little lost. Adam said calmly. The sea is as beautiful as the sea, and the land is as exciting as the land. If you want to set foot in a field that is not your own, you have to be prepared to lose everything. Just like for us, every ocean trip is an adventure with life as a bet. Hanhai raised her eyebrows and grinned. Since your life is in danger, why do you come to this island far away from the mainland again and again? Adam's expression remained unchanged, with a warm smile still on his face, for profit. As time passed, the crowd gradually dispersed, and the sailors returned to the sailboat one by one, discussing which mermaid girl was more beautiful. No one voted for Hanhai, and their hobbies had not gone to weird places. In the eyes of the sailors, Hanhai, who has many scales on her upper body in addition to her tail, looks more like a fish than a human, of course, except for some Amon with unique aesthetics. Hanhai staggered towards her home with a bit of drunkenness. She drank half a glass of wine. The mermaids only left 4 members of the escort team beside the merchant ship as the most basic surveillance to prevent the sailors from entering the prohibited area. In the dead of night, Adam walked onto the deck and looked at the 4 guards not far away, without any fluctuation in his eyes. 4 bugs with 12 rings and star-like colors slowly crawled behind the guard, silently. Several Amon seemed to grow out of the ground, twisting into shape. They invariably covered the guards' mouths from behind and slit their throats with daggers made of soul power. Streams of light fell outward from Adam's body, transforming into Amon wearing classical robes and pointed soft hats. Everyone, the action begins. After Adam left a word, he took out a pair of monocles and put it on his right eye, stepped on the petals with condensed soul power, and ran towards the altar in the middle of the lake. The Amon scattered in all directions and dispersed to all parts of the village. They did not take action immediately, they hid their bodies and waited for the opportunity. Adam came to the square pyramid in the middle of the lake, climbed the steps, and stopped in front of the statue at the top. The heroic and huge statue of Poseidon gives people a faint sense of oppression, and a magnificent sea blue bead is enshrined on the table in front. Who is it? 2 harpoons came from the darkness. Adam used his soul power to condense a shield on each side to block the attack. Humph, you outsiders really don't have good intentions. 2 mermaids, one on the left and one on the right, walked out from behind the stone pillars on both sides. They were tall and tall, with soul power fluctuations exuding from their bodies, 2 soul sect-level mermaids. Adam did not tangle with them. 2 streams of light flew out of his body, transformed into 2 Amon, and faced their respective opponents. He himself took a few steps forward, grabbed the blue orb, then turned around and ran away. A mermaid blew the whistle hanging around her neck, and the sharp and harsh sound mixed with the fluctuations of soul power spread outward. At the same time, Adam also informed the Amon scattered in the village through spiritual connection to take action. Hanhai opened her eyes suddenly and quickly jumped out of the oval pool-shaped bed, bringing up a large splash of water, pearl of the sea. Who is so bold? Boom! Fierce flames shot up into the sky, and the warehouse storing fish oil in the village was ignited, and the flames kept burning. Burning flames lit up the sky. Hanhai saw strange men wearing pointed hats, holding daggers and hunting down the villagers. Their strength has reached the soul master level astonishingly. And I'm afraid it's level 40. Hanhai casually slapped 2 Amon to death and found that they looked exactly the same, and their faces were somewhat familiar. She was a little hesitant, not knowing whether to clean up the weirdos in the village first or to protect the pearl of the sea. Hanhai, leave this to me, you go to the altar, an old male fishman shouted, with powerful soul fluctuations surging around him. The village needs someone to take charge of the overall situation and stabilize the situation. Although Hanhai is quite capable, he is still young. With such considerations, the mermaid chief made such a decision. Yes, Grandpa. Upon hearing this, Hanhai immediately jumped into the river and swam to the lake in the center of the island, followed by several mermaid guards. On the way to the central lake, Hanhai suddenly remembered that the weirdo looked exactly like the sailor riding a unicycle at the bonfire party before. She had a fierce look in her eyes, and her expression became ferocious, and she ordered, "You, go and kill everyone on the merchant ship." Yes. The mermaid guard had a fierce expression and a cold look in his eyes. Not long after, they arrived at the merchant ship. Although they were somewhat puzzled, these sailors who were sleeping soundly and looked confused when they saw them coming did not seem to have participated in the attack. But whether the sailors were innocent was not in their consideration. The mermaid guards faithfully carried out Hanhai's orders and killed them one by one. The hatred for humans in their hearts made them feel somewhat satisfied in such behavior. When Hanhai rushed to the altar in the middle of the lake, she saw 2 of her tribesmen lying on the ground, killed by 2 identical weirdos wearing monocles. Damn it! She soared from the water like a sharp arrow, jumped directly onto the altar, and said with undisguised anger. Who are you? What is your purpose? Hand over the pearl of the sea. Tisk, it's so scary. Amon stretched out his tone. He stroked his monocle with a playful smile on his face. Purpose? Guess. Chapter 98 Trap. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The other Amon shrugged. Would you stay here with us? He's going to run away. He pointed to the distance, where a water line was moving quickly along the river toward the outside of the island. It's Adam, he stole your gem. Then he left us here to make trouble. He said that the gem is related to God and is very valuable. Steal it and sell it. The 2 Amons told Hanhai the truth in unison. The 2 Amons were temporarily split from the time worm in Adam's body, and only had partial and modified memories. Although the 2 clones knew that there must be something wrong with their memories, it did not prevent them from having facts in their heads now. Hanhai used mind reading to find that neither of them was lying, and a bit of surprise appeared on her face. She swung her fish tail, and under the huge difference in soul power, the 2 Amons were killed by her tail without any resistance. Although she felt something was wrong in her heart, she could not think too much now, and immediately jumped into the lake and chased after Adam. Along the way, seeing the miserable state of the villages on both sides of the river, Hai Yun's anger continued to rise, and at the same time she felt vaguely uneasy. She took out a conch, puffed up her cheeks, and blew it. A low voice sounded, and an invisible wave spread out. On Poseidon Island, the face of the sea witch who was sitting on the edge of the sea maiden holy pillar changed. She took out a conch, put it next to her ear and listened carefully, then she blew the conch and said to the sea soul master beside her, "Please tell Lord Poseidon that something happened in my clan, I have to go back quickly." After that, she soared into the sky, without concealing her soul power fluctuations, and flew towards the direction of the mermaid village. On the sea near the sea maiden holy pillar, the four Amons felt that the terrifying soul power fluctuations gradually faded away, and their faces showed a bit of solemnity. One Amon committed suicide decisively, then two Amons cut their throats with daggers, and the last Amon followed their footsteps in the same way. Amon arranged 3 groups of clones to monitor the sea around the sea maiden pillar, with 4 people in each group. Due to the long distance, the connection between these clones and the main body and other clones is very weak, and it is impossible to transmit messages through mental connection, but the main body can roughly sense its position, as well as life and death. These 4 Amon clones died in the order of 1, 2, 1, telling the main body through such a secret code, the sea witch has left the sea maiden pillar. Adam, who was being hunted by Hai Yun, and Amon's main body waiting on the deserted island, pinched their monocles at the same time, and said, "TSK, it's troublesome. The mermaids really have a way to notify the sea witch." Amon's main body shouted to Walter not far away, "Mr. Walter, you can prepare for the battle, move quickly, the sea witch is really out." "I know." Walter's face was a little solemn. The speed of the sea-breaking shuttle was very fast, and the 3-day journey of the sailboat was only a few hours away. Watching Adam dive into the dense forest of the deserted island, Hai Yun finally showed a somewhat ferocious smile on her face, revealing her fangs. "Humph. Your soul power is finally used up, right? If I catch you, I will eat your flesh and blood piece by piece." After chasing for so long, even if she is a soul beast comparable to tens of thousands of years old, or a soul master at the level of soul Douluo, she feels physically and mentally exhausted. Although Adam uses a soul guide, it also consumes a lot of soul power to maintain such a speed. So Hai Yun concluded that Adam must be unable to hold on before her, and his actions seemed to confirm her previous judgment. Adam didn't run too far, and a water cannon exploded in front of him, forcing him to stop. Hai Yun floated in the air, retracted her straight right hand, and slowly landed in front of him. "Hand over the pearl of the sea, Adam, I thought we could be friends," and sure enough, land soul masters are cunning. "Since we got along well before, I will be gentler when I eat you later." Soul masters can hunt soul beasts to obtain soul rings. For some soul beasts, eating soul masters can also increase their cultivation. Hai Yun's bloodline is closer to soul beasts. For her, soul masters are a tonic food. Adam raised the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing a smile. "Don't you think it strange? In the vast ocean, why is there an island on my escape route? Why would I abandon the convenient soul guide and choose to escape to the land? Based on my understanding of you, would I foolishly underestimate your ability to move on the shore?" Hai Yun's pupils shrank, and she felt a strong sense of uneasiness. She was about to kill the other party, but suddenly felt a fatal threat. She quickly twisted her body and retreated, a rope as thick as a finger shot from the right. After Hai Yun dodged, it shot into the tree trunk on the left and penetrated several trees before stopping. Walter walked out of the bushes and saw the 8 soul rings of yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 and black that appeared on his body. Hai Yun's uneasiness reached its peak at this moment. Contra. She looked at the old man in a white robe with a serious expression. She wanted to retreat, but saw Adam took out a sea blue bead and played with it in his hand. At this moment, Hai Yun suddenly understood something and exclaimed, "Is your target me? You can react, you are not too stupid." Behind Walter, Amon said in a flat tone. Hai Yun gritted her teeth and rushed towards Adam quickly. Even though she knew that the other party's real purpose was to hunt her, and even though she understood that the other party was waiting here and must have made certain preparations, she still had a fluke. The Pearl of the Sea was too important to the mermaids. She could not remain indifferent to the Pearl of the Sea that was so close. Even if she took more risks, she had to take it back. When she was halfway through the rush, she suddenly found that her body could not move. Only then did she realize that her body had been entangled with countless silk threads that were difficult to see with the naked eye. These silk threads were sticky. If they were stuck to a single one or a few, it would not have much effect, but once the number reached a certain level, it would affect the action. She glanced at Walter's second soul ring that was lit. The other party was constantly injecting soul power to enhance the control of the silk thread. A large amount of green liquid suddenly appeared on the surface of Haiyun's body. These liquids were highly corrosive and constantly eroded the silk thread. Amon raised his right hand and grabbed in front of him, and the liquid on the surface of Haiyun's body suddenly disappeared. She looked at Amon with some horror in her eyes. She could no longer use this ability. At the same time, dozens of time worms in Amon's body launched deception on her at the same time, reducing her thinking speed. Although the spiritual gap between the two was huge, Amon's deception could not have much impact on this soul Douluo level strongman, but in front of an experienced hunter like Walter, the slightest mistake is fatal. Haiyun has accumulated too many disadvantages. She rashly stepped into the forest where Walter arranged the silk thread. This is the first. After discovering that she was ambushed, she did not evacuate immediately, but thought about taking back the Pearl of the Sea. This is the second. Amon stole the skill that could corrode the silk thread. This is the third. Amon's mental influence. This is the fourth. Walter seized the moment when she was in a trance and launched the fifth soul skill, the vicious rope gun. Countless silk threads gathered into two spears, one in front and one behind, piercing Haiyun's body. Chapter 99 Absorbing Soul Rings. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The blood dripped continuously, with a faint smell, and fell on the white silk thread, which seemed a bit dazzling. Haiyun lowered her head in a daze, looking at the spear that pierced through her abdomen, and she couldn't believe that she would be defeated so quickly and so easily. She struggled to break free from the spear, but it only made the pain of the wound more intense. No matter which direction she moved from, front, back, left, or right, she couldn't break free without widening the wound. More and more silk threads fell on her, making her completely unable to resist. As if she had seen through something, her originally ferocious face became calm. When did it start? Since when did you set your sights on me? That she looked at Adam and asked with a hint of doubt. At the beginning. Hearing such an answer, Haiyun showed a look of surprise on her face, and murmured, "No wonder. No wonder." She didn't lose unfairly. The battle had started half a year ago. Amon spent a lot of effort to lock the target, judge the strength, and make a plan. It took half a year for this moment. An air bullet hit Haiyun's wound and then exploded from her body. Walter withdrew the silk thread to avoid snatching the last blow. Amon condensed a dagger, threw it far away, and pierced Haiyun's head. Dots of sea blue light emerged from the body of the mermaid, and finally gathered together to form a dark soul ring. As if sensing something, the sea witch on the road suddenly burst out with an even more amazing momentum. Tears flowed from her eyes, and then the sadness turned into uncontrollable anger and murderous intent. Haiyun, looking at the dark soul ring emitting amazing energy fluctuations, Amon did not hesitate and immediately summoned the martial soul. With 12 rings, the star-shaped insect swam quickly in his palm. Following the connection in the dark, the soul power pulled the soul ring and let it approach the martial soul. The soul ring overlapped with a certain link of the time worm, and then the surging energy and endless resentment suddenly poured into Amon's body. Amon's eyes went dark, and his consciousness came to a dark space. He instantly realized that this was his soul space. Haiyun's soul appeared in front of him with a cold smile on her face. "Hey, you can't imagine it. We mermaids have a unique ability. If someone hunts us as soul beasts and absorbs our soul rings, our souls can enter that person's body." Amon looked at her for a moment, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "But your soul doesn't seem to be complete. If you really have the size of a soul fighter, you can pose some threat to me. Now you are just a big bunch of resentment at best." Haiyun was about to launch an attack, but her movement suddenly stagnated, and endless whispers sounded, either solemn and grand, or dense and crazy. In such whispers, her body twitched uncontrollably, eyeballs, teeth, tongue, arms, calves, every part of the body seemed to be endowed with its own consciousness. She looked at the dark space in horror. Above, there seemed to be a shadowy giant, and below, endless grey fog was surging. In the void, slippery tentacles with mysterious patterns could be vaguely seen wriggling. With just one glance, her eyeball was polluted and assimilated, turning into something like an octopus tentacle, swinging wildly in her eye socket. The tentacle that the eyeball turned into stretched into her other eye socket, reaching directly to the brain, and then kept stirring. Ah! Haiyin's spirit screamed. Tumors began to grow on her arms, and her body swelled into a disgusting mass of meat. Finally, the meat suddenly exploded, was decomposed and assimilated by the grey fog, and became part of the grey fog. Amon opened his eyes, stroked his monocle, and was about to say something, but fell silent again, looking at the sky in the distance. An astonishing soul power fluctuation was approaching quickly, and the terrible pressure that permeated the sky made people feel a sense of soul trembling. There was no need to think too much. This must be Haiyin's sister, the Sea Witch. Sorry, how are you now? Can you move? Walter asked. Amon nodded. Let's retreat. It's not a wise thing to fight her here. If we drag it out for a long time, we might have to face that sea god Douluo, and that would be a sure death. Walter immediately grabbed Amon's shoulder and used the silk thread to quickly slide to the seaside. His sixth soul ring lit up, and the silk thread gathered to form a clone that looked exactly like him. Walter's clone wiped his face, adjusted his appearance, and turned into a middle-aged man who looked very heroic. If Tang San was here, he would probably recognize it at a glance. This is his father. He just looks younger, and he doesn't have that decadent temperament on him. He looks aggressive. Walter's silk thread connected to the clone after many twists and turns. Even if the Sea Witch could see the subtle lines, she couldn't determine the position of Walter's body by the direction of the line. Walter brought Amon to the seaside, threw out the soul guide that Adam prepared for them, input soul power, and quickly moved away. When they sensed the Sea Witch, the stronger Sea Witch naturally sensed them as well, but she did not chase the two people who escaped, but ran straight to the deserted island. First, the soul guide is very fast. Under Walter's control, it is much faster than the one used by Adam to escape from the Mermaid village. Even with her strength as a tidal Douluo, it is not easy to catch up. Second, when she arrived above the deserted island, a blond young man was sitting on a chair on the coast, playing with a sea blue bead in his hand. In addition, beside him, a man wearing a black classical robe and a pointed soft hat was sitting cross-legged next to Haiyin's body, with soul power surging on his body, and seemed to be breaking through. This is the clone left by Amon, who released his former soul power expressiveness and simulated the state of absorbing soul rings to confuse the Sea Witch. Although the Sea Witch knew that the two people who escaped might have some tricks, she could not leave her sister's body and the Pearl of the Sea alone, and the man who seemed to be absorbing soul rings was one of the murderers of his sister. Walter looked at Amon's clone who was absorbing the soul ring through the online clone, and then looked at Amon behind him, with a look of suspicion in his eyes. The Amon he brought with him had no soul power fluctuations at all, and he even doubted whether he had brought the wrong person. Amon, who was sitting in the back seat of the speedboat-type soul guide, touched the bottom edge of his monocle with his index finger and said with a smile, "Mr. Walter, don't look so surprised. It's just a clone skill, don't you know it?" That while controlling the speedboat to sail towards Hanhai city, Walter turned back and looked at Amon. "Is this really your real body? Are you really absorbing soul rings? If I brought the wrong person, I can go back and save you on the island. It's not too late now." It's really touching that you can say that. That's a title Douluo. But there's no need. The me now is indeed the real body. Hearing him say this, Walter didn't say anything else, but just muttered to himself. Why are the skills of this guy so weird? It seems that none of them are used for fighting. Instead, they are very suitable for some conspiracies and tricks. Chapter 100 Sea Girl Douluo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Sea Witch was suspended in the air, looking down at the three people below. she could tell at a glance that Walter was not a human being, but a clone created by soul skills. Without him, the thread that controls the clone may be difficult to detect in the eyes of others, but at the level of a tidal Douluo, you can spot it if you pay a little attention. In the sea witch's perception, a silk thread connected the thread clone's head, twisting and turning in an unknown direction. She judged that he was the main force that killed Hai Yun and was one of the two people who escaped using the Soul Guide speedboat. The terrifying soul pressure enveloped the sky like a dark cloud. The sea witch didn't say anything, and there was only cold murderous intent in her eyes. She had to deal with the three people below in the shortest possible time, and then hunt down the two who escaped. Under the effect of the third soul skill insight, Adam noticed that the sea witch was about to release an offensive soul skill. He chuckled, shook the pearl of the sea in his hand, and then dragged Hai Yun's body to block it. In front of me, although Adam was unable to gain much effective information due to the large gap in strength, he could guess that it was a group skill that could attack three people at the same time and was very deadly. The sea witch obviously cared about the pearl of the sea and Hai Yun's body, as the lighted soul ring suddenly went out. Adam had a successful smile on his face. As long as the other party didn't use map cannons or use those high-level soul skills, Walter's line clone would be able to delay for a while longer, and the main body would be safer. Seeing Adam's action, Walter's eyes flashed with approval. Very good, shameless enough. Adam had a warm smile on his face. I take this as a compliment. Walter asked again with some doubts, why are you willing to stay to attract her attention? You will die. Adam just smiled. It's a necessary sacrifice. Necessary sacrifice. Walter chewed the meaning of this sentence in his heart. The sea witch clenched her silver teeth, and the soul skill she was about to release suddenly stopped. She also let out a muffled groan because the accumulated soul power was not released as scheduled. Damn it, you're going to pay for what you've done. She suddenly retreated a distance and her body fell on the sea. Adam frowned. He didn't remember all the details of the original work. He didn't know what the sea witch had to do. Seeing that the other party seemed to be preparing to use some special tricks, he did not hesitate and immediately threw out the breaking sea shuttle, input his soul power and left quickly. Seeing the water line moving away at an astonishing speed, the sea witch showed a sneer on her face and released her martial soul true form. As the seventh soul ring lit up, her body expanded rapidly and did not stop until she was more than 10 meters away. The huge fish tail touched the sea water lightly, and her beautiful face was filled with murderous intent. The enlarged sea witch looked slightly unreal. She put the black flute-shaped martial spirit to her mouth, and the ethereal flute sounded slowly. As the sound of the flute echoed, her ninth soul ring also lit up at the same time. The ninth soul skill, the sea-suppressing divine comedy. This is a large-scale spiritual attack that can disintegrate other people's fighting spirit and destroy their spirit. The fact that Adam used Pearl of the Sea and Hai Yun's corpse as a shield made the sea witch restrained and did not dare to use physically destructive moves, so she directly used mental attacks, and this is exactly her strength. Circle after circle of black ripples quickly spread around her with her as the center. Walter frowned and cut off the auditory connection with the line clone. After thinking for a while, he felt that this was not safe enough, so he cut off the rest of the sensory connections. Although he didn't know whether the other party's attack could affect the main body along the thread, Walter felt that it was better to be safe. Looking at the spreading black ripples from a distance, Adam felt like a light on his back. He judged that this might be an attack using sound as a medium, and he broke his eardrum without hesitation. Then, he covered himself with a soul shield, raising his vigilance and being ready to deal with the coming attack at any time. Amon's clone, who had been sitting cross-legged on the ground, pretending to absorb the soul ring, stopped pretending, stood up, looked at the sea witch preparing soul skills in the distance, and stroked his monocle. Glancing at the sluggish Walter line clone beside him, a smile flashed across his face. This old guy is so cautious. As a circle of rich black ripples suddenly expanded, the undulating sea surface suddenly stopped, as if the pause button had been pressed. The sea surface beneath the sea witch's tail sank, and a huge pit appeared. Invisible sound waves swept across all directions, and the expression on Amon's clone who stayed on the coast instantly froze. Then, like a stiff sculpture, he fell straight to the ground. His body began to become elusive, and finally disappeared. After realizing that the clone on the island was dead, Adam immediately cheered up. In just 1 second, he felt as if thunder exploded in his ears. Although it had pierced his eardrums, the sound penetrated straight into his soul. The turbulent sound waves passed through the layers of murmurs and hit his soul, making him dizzy. His eyes, nostrils, corners of his mouth, and ears were all covered with blood, and he looked particularly ferocious. Perhaps because no substantial sound was heard, perhaps because the distance was too far and the damage was reduced, Adam did not die immediately. His face was pale, and his body was shaking under the severe pain in his soul, but he still tried hard to maintain the operation of the broken sea shuttle, using the 7th and 9th soul skills in succession, even the tidal Douluo level sea, which felt exhausted. Not only was it a consumption of soul power, but using this move also had a huge burden on the spirit. After roughly sensing the 3 people she had chosen as her attack targets, her face was not very good. This huge consumption move did not achieve the expected effect. The blonde Adam was still fleeing. Although the clone was already stagnant, it did not disappear. The guy who absorbed the soul ring was completely dissipated, but what about the body? Not even a body was left. This is not a real person at all. While Walter's clone had not recovered, the sea witch raised her hand and fired a corrosive water cannon to disperse it, and then she immediately chased in the direction of the sea-breaking shuttle. Adam saw that the sea witch was getting closer and closer to him, and casually threw the pearl of the sea into the sea. Death struggle. The sea witch plunged into the sea. After taking back the pearl of the sea, she still did not let Adam go and continued to chase him. After leaving Poseidon Island, she went to the mermaid village as soon as possible. After understanding what happened, she rushed to chase after the man with blonde hair, knowing that he played an important role in this incident. The sea witch guessed that the 2 people who escaped at the beginning were the masterminds, but Adam was also on her hunting list and had a high priority. Not long after, she caught up with Breaking Sea Shuttle and condensed a huge soul power and smashed Adam's head with a simple palm.